the alien warrior challenged a human to a duel, and the result left her speechless. Traders and travelers from all corners of the galaxy crowded the streets, their languages blending into a lively hum. Humans were still a relatively new presence here, but their reputation had grown quickly. Among them, Commander Leora Kane stood out, not for her strength alone, but for her courage and sharp mind. Leora walked through the central plaza of the hub, her eyes scanning the crowd. She wore her standard uniform, practical, yet marked with the insignia of the Earth Alliance. Despite her calm expression, her senses were alert. Her visit to Zorath was supposed to be diplomatic, a chance to strengthen trade agreements and avoid misunderstandings between humans and the various alien races. But humans, for all their intelligence, were still often underestimated in physical contests, and Zorath had a tradition of testing strength. The crowd parted as a massive figure entered the arena at the center of the plaza. The alien Thrinx was a warrior of the Rykari, a species known for their immense strength, towering size, and rigid sense of honor. His skin shimmered in shades of green and bronze, armored naturally like a living fortress. In one hand he held a long, curved blade, engraved with symbols of past victories. The other hand was free, though large enough to crush a human skull. He stepped forward, his presence demanding attention. Leora paused. She had read about the Rykari, had studied their combat styles, and knew how dangerous they could be. But she had never seen one in person. Even from a distance, Thrinx radiated confidence, almost arrogance. The crowd cheered and shouted, some in admiration, some in fear. Humans were rare in such displays, and a human in the front row drew curious, cautious eyes. Then it happened. Thrinx raised his voice, booming across the plaza. "Human," he called, his tone both commanding and mocking. "You have courage, they say. I challenge you to a duel. Let the galaxy see the strength of your kind." The plaza fell silent. Every eye turned to Leora. She felt 1,000 gazes on her, alien and human alike. Some watched with excitement, others with disbelief. Humans were not known for dueling warriors of the Rykari. It was considered almost suicidal. Yet here, in the middle of a crowded plaza, an alien had thrown down a challenge. Leora's mind raced. She was a trained soldier, yes, but this was not just a matter of physical skill. The duel would be dangerous, and losing could mean injury, or worse. But she also knew something others often forgot. Humans were clever, adaptable, and brave. The Rykari relied on strength and straightforward combat. If she used her mind and strategy, she might survive and even win. She stepped forward, her boots clicking on the polished plaza floor. "I accept your challenge," she said firmly. Her voice carried over the plaza, steady and confident. Gasps rose from the crowd, some whispering that she was foolish, others murmuring admiration. Thrinx's eyes narrowed, curious and amused. No human had ever accepted a challenge like this before. His lips curled into a grin, showing sharp teeth. "Very well," he said. "Prepare yourself, human. The duel will begin at dawn. The arena awaits." The plaza erupted into cheers and murmurs once more. Leora turned and walked away, trying to focus. Her mind was already racing with plans and strategies. The arena was vast and unpredictable, with hazards designed to test strength, reflexes, and wit. It was not just a duel of fists and blades, it was a contest of survival. That evening, Leora met with her small team of human advisors and alien allies who respected humans for their cunning. "We need to understand his fighting style," she said. "Thrinx is powerful, but every warrior has patterns. If we can predict him, we can exploit his strengths and weaknesses." Her team nodded. They began to review footage of Rykari duels, studying Thrinx's movements. Even from the screens, his size and speed were intimidating. But Leora noticed something important. He relied heavily on brute force and predictable strikes. He rarely used misdirection or traps. That was where humans could have an advantage, outthinking their opponent. As night fell, the city lights reflected in the twin suns' fading glow. Leora trained in her quarters, moving fluidly, practicing agility exercises and weapon techniques. She did not try to match Thrinx's strength. Instead, she focused on speed, timing, and using the environment. She imagined the arena, with its shifting floors, walls, and hazards, and mentally plotted ways to turn them to her advantage. Despite the preparation, Leora could not ignore the weight of what she had done. Humans were always seen as clever, adaptable, and daring, but also fragile compared to the mighty Rekari. She took a deep breath and reminded herself. The galaxy had underestimated humans before, and humans had survived. They thrived by thinking, not by brute force alone. The next morning, the arena was packed. Spectators of all races gathered to witness the duel. The floor of the arena was vast, uneven, and covered with shifting platforms, spikes that could rise and fall, and walls that could move to create obstacles. The arena seemed alive, designed not just to challenge strength but intelligence and reflexes as well. Thrinx entered first, the ground trembling beneath his steps. Leora followed, keeping her composure. The spectators gasped at the size difference. Thrinx towered over her by almost a full head, his armor reflecting the morning sun. But Leora did not falter. She focused on the basics: observation, patience, and strategy. The duel began with a ceremonial signal, a loud chime that echoed through the arena. Thrinx charged immediately, his speed astonishing for his size. Leora dodged deftly, using her agility to stay out of reach. Sparks flew as Thrinx's blade struck the arena floor, carving shallow grooves in the metal. The crowd held its breath. Humans were expected to fall quickly, but Leora's movements were precise. She avoided direct confrontation, staying mobile, using the shifting platforms to her advantage. The duel was not just about strength. It was a dance of wits, timing, and skill. Thrinx roared in frustration, swinging with incredible force. Leora barely escaped each strike, but she began to notice patterns: how he moved where he overcommitted, how he relied too heavily on his upper body. She took mental notes, calculating the best ways to counter his attacks. Minutes passed like hours. The crowd cheered and gasped with every close encounter. Leora's heart pounded, but she kept calm, her mind sharp and focused. This was not just about winning. It was about showing what humans were capable of. As the duel progressed, it became clear to some spectators that this human was not like others. Leora was turning the tide not by matching Thrinx's strength, but by using intelligence, agility, and strategy. Every move was measured, every step purposeful. Even the alien spectators murmured among themselves, surprised by her skill. By the end of the first part of the duel, neither combatant had fallen, but the audience's perception of humans had shifted. Leora's courage and skill were undeniable. Even Thrinx, the mighty Raikari warrior, seemed intrigued and a little cautious. The day ended with a temporary pause. The duel would continue, but the message was clear: humans could survive and even challenge the strongest beings in the galaxy. Leora's resolve hardened. This duel was more than a test of strength. It was a statement. Humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of more than anyone had believed. As Leora left the arena, the sun reflected off her armor, and she felt a spark of hope. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but she knew that courage, strategy, and determination could turn the impossible into the possible. The duel was far from over, and the real test had only just begun. The day after her acceptance of the duel, Commander Leora Kane woke early. The twin suns of Zorath were just rising, casting a golden glow across the bustling city. She felt a mixture of determination and quiet tension. The duel was no longer a distant challenge. It was real. Every moment counted. Every decision could tip the scales between victory and defeat. Leora moved through her quarters, checking her gear. Her standard combat uniform was light and flexible, perfect for agility. but she had added reinforced padding on key areas, elbows, knees, and torso, anticipating the power of Thrinx's strikes. She picked up a small training blade, weighing it in her hand, practicing precise movements. Her fingers traced familiar grips, the motions fluid and natural. She knew brute strength could not match the Raikari's. Instead, she would rely on speed, strategy, and awareness. Her small team of human and alien allies had already gathered in a nearby training hall. The hall was spacious, lined with holographic projectors that could simulate battlefield conditions. Among the group was Kai, a human engineer specializing in advanced combat technology, and Vara, a Zorathian scout with exceptional agility and knowledge of alien combat styles. Together, they formed a diverse team capable of helping Leora prepare for any challenge. "Morning, Commander," Kai greeted, adjusting a holographic display. "We've recreated the arena in full detail. Every hazard, platform, and wall movement is included." Vara stepped forward, her green-blue skin shimmering under the hall lights. "Thrinx is predictable in a way," she said. "His strength is unmatched, but he relies on patterns. He overcommits. He trusts in power over wit. If you can exploit that, you might survive, maybe even win." Leora nodded, absorbing their words. "Then we focus on the patterns," she said. "We train fast reactions, agility, and using the arena to my advantage. I can't beat him head-on, but I can outthink him." The team started the training exercises. Holographic images of Thrinx's movements projected into the air, showing sequences of attacks, charges, and strikes. Leora studied each motion carefully, noting where the Raikari shifted his weight, where his strength could become a weakness, and how he might respond to unexpected tactics. "Watch his right shoulder," Vara pointed out. "When he swings, he leaves his left side exposed. You can create openings if you move quickly." Leora nodded again. She practiced movements, dodging simulated strikes, using her environment, and adapting to the shifting arena floor. Each time she slipped or stumbled, she analyzed why. She learned more from mistakes than from successes, knowing that every lesson could be crucial in the real duel. Hours passed. Leora's body ached, but she welcomed it. Humans often relied on endurance and mental toughness more than raw power, and she intended to use both. She practiced feints, sudden dashes, and evasions. Her movements became a blend of grace and precision, a stark contrast to Thrinx's raw, forceful swings. Kai introduced a set of devices designed to enhance her training. Small drones simulated obstacles, falling objects, and unexpected attacks, forcing Leora to adapt instantly. "Predicting patterns isn't enough," Kai said. "You must react to unpredictability. The real duel will have surprises. Train for that." Vara added, "Also watch your psychological approach. Thrinx is proud. He expects fear. He expects hesitation. If you remain calm, deliberate, and confident, you unsettle him." Leora listened carefully. Humans were often underestimated for their mental resilience, and she planned to turn that into an advantage. She spent hours meditating between training sessions, focusing her mind, imagining herself in the arena, feeling every movement, hearing every sound, anticipating every strike. By midday, her routine shifted to endurance training. Running through obstacle courses, climbing walls, and balancing on moving platforms, she built strength in her legs and core, necessary for dodging, jumping, and maintaining control on the arena's unpredictable terrain. Sweat dripped from her brow, but she pushed herself, knowing that every drop brought her closer to readiness. Even during breaks, she studied more. Holographic projections of past Raikari duels showed how different warriors reacted under pressure. Leora compared their actions, noting tendencies and strategies. Her human mind thrived on observation and learning. Where brute force failed, analysis succeeded. As the sun dipped low, Leora's team gathered for strategy discussions. "You can't rely on your blade alone," Kai said. You must manipulate the environment, use obstacles, and turn his strength against him. The arena can be an ally if you think ahead. Vara added, timing is everything. Thrinx is fast, but he has limits. He tires if overexerted. Make him chase, make him strike, and then exploit openings. Predictability is your weapon. Leora leaned forward, eyes sharp. I will need to control the pace. If I let him dominate with force, I lose. I need to set the rhythm, use feints, and force him into mistakes. The team nodded, impressed by her clarity. Humans were small in stature compared to many alien species, but their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage often gave them unexpected advantages. Leora was living proof of that. The next morning, Leora returned to the arena simulation. She had a clear plan. Avoid direct confrontation, stay mobile, use hazards creatively, and read Thrinx's reactions to adjust her tactics. She moved fluidly across holographic platforms, timing jumps and dodges perfectly. Every strike of her simulated opponent was met with precise counters. She felt her confidence grow with each repetition. But training was not just physical. Leora spent hours studying Thrinx's psychology. She observed his pride, his quick temper, and his tendency to underestimate opponents. He respects strength, but intelligence can surprise him, Leora told herself. If I remain calm and deliberate, I can control his actions. Vara demonstrated one final tactic, using Thrinx's momentum against him. When he swings, he overbalances. Use that, she said. It's not about matching his power, it's about redirecting it. Leora practiced this with Kai and Vara acting as her opponents. At first, she stumbled, unable to redirect the simulated strikes efficiently, but gradually her movements became instinctive. Her body reacted before her mind even registered the attack. Humans often relied on creativity and adaptability, and she had embraced both fully. As the day ended, Leora stood on the rooftop overlooking the city. The suns were setting, bathing Zarath in deep gold and orange. She reflected on what she had learned. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they had advantages others often overlooked: intelligence, strategy, courage, and the ability to adapt. In this duel, those traits could become her weapons. Her thoughts drifted to the upcoming fight. The arena would test her in ways training could not fully replicate, but she felt ready. Her body was prepared, her mind sharp, and her spirit resolute. No matter the outcome, she would show the galaxy what humans were capable of. That night she slept lightly, dreams filled with the clashing of weapons, shifting platforms, and the booming voice of Thrinx. But there was no fear, only focus, only determination. Tomorrow the duel would begin. Tomorrow, humans would stand against one of the most powerful warriors the galaxy had ever seen. And Leora Kane would not just survive. She would challenge expectations, using the human spirit to shine in a universe that had long underestimated her kind. The arena was alive with energy. Thousands of spectators, both human and alien, filled the stands, their voices echoing across the open space. The air was thick with anticipation. Some cheered for the Rykari warrior, Thrinx, confident that no human could survive his power. Others whispered in awe, wondering if Commander Leora Kane could truly hold her own against the towering alien. The arena floor stretched wide and uneven, a complex web of moving platforms, rising spikes, and shifting walls. The twin suns glinted off the metallic surfaces, creating patterns of light that dazzled the eyes. Leora stood at one end, breathing calmly. She felt the weight of the moment, yet her focus was absolute. Every training session, every observation, every strategy she had learned, all came together now. Thrinx stepped onto the arena floor. His massive frame seemed even larger in person, muscles rippling beneath armored skin. He carried his curved blade easily, almost lazily, as if he already believed victory was his. The crowd erupted in cheers at his appearance, but Leora did not flinch. She met his gaze, steady and determined. The ceremonial bell rang. The duel had begun. Thrinks charged immediately, his heavy steps shaking the arena. The first strike was swift and powerful, aimed directly at Leora's torso. She ducked low, rolling to the side and avoiding the blow by mere inches. Sparks flew as his blade scraped across the metal floor. The crowd gasped at the near miss, some murmuring that the human would not last long. But Leora did not panic. She kept moving, sliding across platforms and leaping over hazards. The arena responded to their movements, platforms shifting and walls moving, but she anticipated each change with precision. Every movement had a purpose. Every step was calculated. Thrinks's attacks were relentless. Each swing of his blade carried enough force to crush stone. Yet Leora did not meet him head-on. She used agility, evasion, and clever timing to stay just out of reach. She noticed patterns in his movement. He favored his right side for attacks, relied on momentum, and rarely adjusted mid-strike. That was her opportunity. A large spiked wall rose suddenly behind her. Leora leapt onto a moving platform, using it to dodge an incoming strike. Thrinks followed, but his massive size made him slower in maneuvering around the obstacles. For the first time, the crowd saw him struggle, unable to use his strength to full effect. Leora feinted a move to the left, then darted right, sliding under a swinging arm. Thrinks roared in frustration, his confidence shaken slightly. The human was not just surviving, she was making him work. Every dodge, every careful step, forced him to adjust and overexert, draining his stamina gradually. The duel became a dance of wits and reflexes. Leora's movements were precise, almost fluid, as she used the arena to her advantage. Platforms rose and fell beneath her feet, spikes thrust up unexpectedly, and walls shifted to create narrow passages. She navigated each hazard with skill, forcing Thrinks to follow, often stumbling or overreaching. At one point, Leora noticed a small hazard, a swinging metal pendulum designed to knock combatants off balance. She baited Thrinks into swinging at her, then sidestepped at the last moment. The pendulum struck him instead, sending him staggering. The crowd erupted in shock and awe. A human had just turned the arena itself against one of the most powerful warriors in the galaxy. Leora's mind raced. She realized that physical strength was only one part of the duel. Strategy, observation, and adaptability were equally important. Humans were not naturally as strong as Raikari, but their intelligence allowed them to turn disadvantages into advantages. Thrinks, frustrated and slightly wary, tried to change his approach. He began using his brute strength to crush platforms, hoping to limit Leora's mobility. The arena shook with each strike. Leora jumped to a higher platform, narrowly avoiding falling spikes. She watched carefully as the Raikari's movements became more predictable in his anger. She began to set traps of her own. Using the shifting floor, she lured Thrinks toward rising spikes. At the last moment she dodged, and he was forced to leap awkwardly, barely avoiding injury. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. Many had come to see a human fail, but now they watched with wide eyes, captivated by her cleverness and courage. Despite his size and power, Thrinks began to respect the human before him. He could not understand how she moved with such speed and foresight. She anticipated his attacks, predicted his strategies, and used the environment to her advantage. Each encounter left him slightly off balance, his pride wounded by her skill. Leora noticed something important. Thrinks grew tired faster than she expected. His heavy armor and constant exertion were taking a toll. Humans, lighter and more flexible, could endure longer in such conditions. She adjusted her strategy, keeping him chasing her, forcing him to strike continuously while she conserved energy. A particularly tense moment arrived when Thrinks swung his blade with immense force, aiming for a finishing strike. Leora rolled to the side, landing behind him. Using his momentum against him, she nudged a nearby platform, causing him to stumble slightly. It was not a strike of strength, but a clever use of the arena's mechanics. The audience erupted, cheering her ingenuity. Even other Raikari in the crowd looked on in amazement. Never before had a human matched one of their champions in combat. Leora was not just surviving, she was proving a point. Humans were underestimated, but they were clever, adaptable, and capable of surprising even the strongest warriors. The duel continued with increasing intensity. Leora moved like water, flowing through obstacles, slipping past strikes, and always staying one step ahead. Thrinks grew more aggressive, swinging with raw power but also making mistakes due to his impatience. Leora capitalized on each misstep, staying focused and alert. As the sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the arena, it became clear that this duel was not just about strength. It was about intellect, courage, and adaptability. Leora's mind was as sharp as her movements, and the crowd recognized it. Some began cheering for the human, inspired by her resilience. For Thrinks, the duel was becoming frustrating. His confidence had been shaken. He had never faced an opponent like Leora before. She was smaller, lighter, and human, but her strategy and clever use of the arena kept him off balance. He roared in frustration, swinging wildly, but Leora always anticipated, always dodged. At one point, Leora used a rising platform to gain higher ground. From there, she observed Thrinks carefully, noticing the rhythm in his strikes, the slight hesitation after each overextended move, and the fatigue creeping into his massive frame. She began planning her next moves, calculating the best way to exploit his weaknesses while avoiding direct confrontation. The duel reached a turning point when Leora feinted an attack, drawing Thrinks into a narrow passage with spikes on either side. He followed aggressively, and she slipped past him at the last moment, causing him to stumble into the hazard. A loud clang echoed as he barely avoided serious injury. The crowd gasped, some cheering loudly, some in stunned silence. Leora's heart pounded, but her focus never wavered. She had survived the first major exchange, and more importantly, she had learned crucial information about Thrinks's fighting style and limitations. She realized that victory was not impossible, just difficult. And humans were nothing if not resourceful. As the first part of the duel concluded, both combatants stepped back to catch their breath. Thrinks's pride was wounded, but his curiosity was piqued. He had underestimated humans, and now he faced a warrior who could think, adapt, and survive in ways he had never imagined. Leora looked around the arena, noting the shifting platforms, hazards, and the reactions of the audience. She felt a surge of confidence. The duel had only just begun, but she had already proven something important. Humans were capable of much more than others believed. Strength alone did not define power. Intelligence, strategy, and adaptability could turn the tide. The spectators were left in awe. Humans had always been underestimated, but today, one human had challenged expectations and survived against a warrior of legendary strength. Leora Kane had shown the galaxy that courage, skill, and wit could match, and even outshine, brute force. The sun blazed high over the arena, casting sharp light across the metallic platforms and shifting walls. The duel between Commander Leora Kane and Thrinks had entered its most dangerous phase. Both combatants were weary, but neither was willing to yield. The crowd held its collective breath, sensing that the tide of battle was about to change. Thrinks's massive form moved with relentless power. Each swing of his blade carried the force of a wrecking machine, yet Leora continued to evade, her movements quick, precise, and deliberate. The earlier lessons of pattern recognition and observation were paying off. She knew when to strike, when to retreat, and when to use the arena itself as a weapon. The alien warrior roared, frustrated by his inability to land a decisive blow. His pride burned hotter than the twin suns above. Humans were supposed to be clever but physically weak. They should not be able to match him in combat. Yet here she was, slipping past strikes, anticipating his attacks and using his own strength against him. Leora paused briefly on a raised platform, scanning the battlefield. Her mind was calm, calculating. She had observed Thrinx closely. He was strong, yes, but predictable when tired. His swings became slower, less precise, and more desperate. That desperation was her advantage. The human brain excelled where brute force struggled: strategy, adaptability, and foresight. With a deep breath, she began her plan for the turning point. Leora lured Thrinx into a series of narrow corridors, each lined with obstacles. She darted through gaps, causing him to stumble or overextend with every swing. The arena itself seemed almost to aid her, the moving platforms shifting in her favor as she anticipated their motion. Thrinx swung wildly, attempting to end the duel quickly, but each attack played into Leora's carefully laid strategy. She used her speed to move behind him, causing him to stumble into a trap of rising spikes. The alien barely recovered, his massive blade scraping against the hazard. The crowd gasped, a mix of fear and amazement. Humans rarely had such skill, let alone courage. Leora's eyes never left Thrinx. She had studied his combat style meticulously and understood his mindset. He relied on power and intimidation, assuming that fear would weaken his opponents. But Leora felt no fear, only focus, determination, and a growing confidence in her own abilities. Using her agility, she maneuvered around him, baiting him into chasing her across the shifting platforms. Each movement was calculated, designed to force him into overexertion. The Rykari warrior's breathing grew heavy, his swings slightly slower. Leora's advantage was mental as much as physical. She was shaping the battlefield, controlling the pace, and forcing her opponent to act within her strategy. Thrinx attempted a sudden, sweeping strike to break her rhythm. Leora ducked and rolled to the side, landing on a platform above him. She saw the faintest hesitation in his eyes, a flicker of doubt. That was all she needed. With a quick assessment, she identified a vulnerability: the gap between his shoulder and armor plating, left exposed after his overextended swing. She leapt into action. Using the platform for momentum, she moved in a blur, striking at the weak point with precise force, not to injure but to unbalance. Thrinx staggered, surprised by the accuracy of her move. The crowd erupted, cheering the human's audacity. Even other Rykari warriors murmured among themselves in disbelief. Leora continued her calculated assault. She feinted left, then darted right, sliding under his guard and forcing him toward a cluster of obstacles. Thrinx swung his blade, striking the floor with a deafening clang, but Leora was already gone, using the arena's hazards to slow his movements. The battle had become a contest of wits and endurance, a test of strategy versus strength. Despite his frustration, Thrinx's respect for the human warrior grew. He had underestimated humans, assuming their weakness would make the duel simple. Instead, he faced an opponent who could think, adapt, and survive in ways he had never imagined. Each failed strike, each clever maneuver left him more cautious, more aware, and slightly less confident in his raw power. Leora's mind was sharp, her body precise. She knew that the turning point had arrived. Thrinx was strong, but he was tired, predictable, and frustrated. If she could maintain focus, exploit his mistakes, and control the pace, victory was within reach. She darted across a moving platform, narrowly avoiding a rising spike, and positioned herself strategically behind him. She initiated a sequence of feints, causing Thrinx to swing unnecessarily. Each swing drained him further, his armor making him less agile. Leora slipped through narrow spaces, baited him into overreaching, and used his momentum to manipulate his movement. With each step, she gained more control over the battlefield. The turning point became clear when Leora lured Thrinks toward a section of the arena filled with swinging pendulums and rising platforms. She anticipated the timing perfectly, dodging hazards while guiding the alien into overextension. His massive swing struck the environment instead of her, each collision rattling the platforms and shaking the arena floor. The audience gasped in awe. For the first time, Thrinks's expression showed real doubt. He had never faced an opponent who could predict his movements so accurately, use the arena so effectively, and remain calm under relentless pressure. Leora's tactics were more than defensive, they were shaping the duel entirely. The human had become the master of the battlefield. Leora knew she could not rely on strength to finish the duel. Instead, she combined timing, strategy, and agility to force mistakes. She observed a pattern. Thrinks's left foot shifted slightly with each heavy swing, leaving him vulnerable for a brief moment. She decided to exploit it. With careful timing, she feinted to the right, drew his attention, then pivoted and used the rising platform to gain height. In a fluid motion, she nudged a nearby moving platform with her momentum, forcing Thrinks slightly off balance. His blade struck the floor again, and he staggered. Leora's precision and cleverness left the crowd in stunned silence, followed by a wave of cheering. She did not strike to harm. Her focus was to unbalance and control. Humans had always survived by thinking, not just fighting. And here, her ingenuity was on full display. Thrinks roared in frustration, swinging his blade faster, harder, and less precisely. Each overextended strike allowed Leora to dodge with ease. She guided him toward another hazard, a corridor lined with vertical spikes that rose at random intervals. Using a feint, she baited him into entering first. He struggled to navigate the spikes, slowing his movements while she danced around them, untouched and calculating her next move. The arena responded to her strategy. Platforms shifted favorably, obstacles moved in ways that aided her positioning. It was as if the battlefield recognized the cleverness of her tactics. Every action, every step, demonstrated the human ability to adapt, endure, and overcome. Thrinks's pride had begun to crack. He realized that sheer strength was not enough. This human could outthink him, outmaneuver him, and survive hazards that would challenge even the most skilled Raikari. His respect, begrudging as it was, grew with every clever maneuver. By the end of the sequence, Leora had forced Thrinks to retreat momentarily, giving herself space to recover and plan her next actions. Sweat ran down her brow, her muscles ached, but her mind was sharper than ever. She had survived the first major turning point and demonstrated that humans could challenge, even surpass, expectations through strategy and intelligence. The crowd erupted in applause, some cheering for the human, others in awe of the display of tactical skill. Thrinks raised his blade, acknowledging the unexpected skill of his opponent. For the first time in his life, he had met a being who could match his strength with intellect, patience, and courage. Leora took a deep breath, scanning the arena for the next opportunity. The duel was far from over, but the turning point had shifted the momentum. Humans had shown that strength was not the only measure of power. Ingenuity, strategy, and adaptability could level the playing field, even against the mightiest warriors in the galaxy. As the sun reached its peak, the duel paused briefly, giving both combatants a moment to breathe. Leora's resolve was stronger than ever. She had survived the turning point, gained the upper hand, and proven that humans could rise to challenges no one had expected. The next phase of the duel would test endurance, skill, and cunning to the fullest, but she was ready. And as she stood there, sweat on her brow, heart racing, and eyes sharp, Leora Kane knew one thing: humans were underestimated at their peril. The galaxy had never seen their true potential, but today she was showing it. The arena was tense with anticipation. Commander Leora Kane and Thrinks, the mighty Raikari warrior, faced each other across the shifting platforms. Sweat dripped from Leora's brow, her uniform dusted with the marks of the duel. Thrinks, massive and powerful, bore scratches and dents on his armor from the clever maneuvers of his human opponent. For hours, the battle had raged, each side testing the other's limits. Leora's strategy had turned the tide, forcing Thrinks to expend energy on dodging and overextending. The alien's frustration and respect had grown in equal measure, his earlier arrogance replaced by caution and awareness. The crowd was on edge, knowing that the climax of the duel was imminent. Leora took a deep breath, centering herself. She had survived every major attack, navigated the arena's hazards, and learned the rhythms of her opponent. Every strike of Thrinks's massive blade had been a lesson, and she had adapted, improved, and grown stronger with each passing moment. Now, she would need to use everything she had learned to finish the duel. Thrinks advanced, swinging his blade with powerful, deliberate movements. Leora moved with precise timing, dodging and weaving through the shifting platforms. Her eyes constantly scanned the battlefield, anticipating the next hazard, the next move, the next opportunity. She knew this was the final phase, her chance to demonstrate humanity's strength and ingenuity. A wide gap opened ahead, with rising spikes on either side and a swinging pendulum overhead. Leora spotted her opportunity. She feigned a movement to the left, drawing Thrinks into a chase. The alien followed, eager to strike decisively, his confidence returning despite his fatigue. But Leora's plan was unfolding perfectly. As Thrinks swung his massive blade, Leora darted under his guard and leapt onto a higher platform. Using the pendulum's swing, she timed her movement to push him slightly off balance. His heavy steps faltered as he stumbled on the rising spikes, and the audience gasped. The powerful Rekari, the supposed champion, was momentarily vulnerable, all because of her cleverness. Leora didn't strike to harm. Humans were resilient and she valued life, even in competition. Instead, she used the environment, her speed, and her understanding of Thrinks's movements to guide him into a position where he had no choice but to yield. The pendulum swung again, forcing him backward, and the rising platforms shifted just enough to unbalance him. For the first time, Thrinks's eyes widened in surprise. His pride had been challenged, his strength matched by a smaller, lighter being who moved with intelligence and precision. Leora moved calmly, deliberately, and for the first time in the duel, Thrinks realized he had underestimated the human completely. The crowd was silent, holding their breath. No one had ever seen such skill and courage from a human in a duel with a Rekari warrior. The spectacle was breathtaking, every movement a combination of strategy, instinct, and human resilience. Leora took advantage of Thrinks's momentary pause. She jumped to a higher platform, landing with balance and poise. Her eyes locked on his, steady and unwavering. "Yield," she said calmly, her voice carrying across the arena. "You fought well, but the duel is over." Thrinks froze, stunned. The idea that a human could command him, a warrior of legendary strength, to yield was unthinkable. He looked at her, breathing heavily, sweat running down his face, scratches marring his armor. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his blade. The crowd erupted into astonished cheers and applause. For a long moment, no one spoke. The arena was filled with the sound of heavy breathing, shifting metal, and the distant hum of the crowd. Then Thrinks stepped forward, towering over her yet showing a rare gesture of respect. "I underestimated your kind," he admitted, his voice deep and resonant. "Humans are clever, adaptable, worthy of respect. I yield." The spectators were stunned into silence. A Rekari warrior, renowned for strength and pride, had publicly acknowledged the skill and courage of a human. Leora stood tall, her chest rising and falling steadily, her eyes bright with determination and pride. She had not only survived the duel but had demonstrated that humans could outthink and outmaneuver even the most formidable opponents. Leora lowered her gaze respectfully. "Thank you," she said softly. It was a worthy challenge. Strength alone does not define us. Intelligence, adaptability, and courage do. Thrinks nodded, his expression softened by admiration. You have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of. I am speechless. The arena erupted in cheers and applause. Humans and aliens alike marveled at the display of skill and bravery. The duel had ended, but its impact was only beginning. Stories of the human who bested a Raikari warrior spread quickly, inspiring others to recognize that humans were not to be underestimated. As the crowd dispersed, Leora took a moment to reflect. Her body ached from the exertion, and her uniform was marked by scratches and dust, but her spirit was unbroken. She had proven something important, not just for herself, but for all humans across the galaxy. Her mind replayed the duel, every feint, every dodge, every calculated maneuver. The victory was not just physical, it was intellectual and strategic. Humans had survived and thrived not because of brute strength, but because of ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. These were qualities that the galaxy would come to recognize, respect, and perhaps even fear. Thrinks approached, standing beside her. "You are remarkable," he said simply. "I have faced the strongest, the fiercest, and the cleverest, but you have redefined what it means to be powerful." Leora smiled faintly, humility in her expression. "Strength is more than muscle," she replied. "It is mind, heart, and courage. That is what humans bring to the galaxy." The Raikari warrior nodded slowly, clearly affected by her words. "Then the galaxy is fortunate to have humans," he said. "Your kind is more than what I imagined. I will speak of this duel for generations." As the sun set over the arena, casting long shadows and golden light across the shifting platforms, Leora Kane looked toward the stars. The duel had ended, but the message was clear. Humans were a force to be reckoned with. Not because of size or strength, but because of their intelligence, courage, and unyielding determination. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving whispers of admiration and awe in their wake. Leora stood alone for a moment, breathing in the quiet. She had faced one of the most powerful warriors in the galaxy and emerged victorious, not through strength alone, but through strategy, adaptability, and heart. Kai and Vara joined her, their faces reflecting pride and amazement. "You did it," Kai said simply. "You've shown what humans can really do." Vara nodded, her eyes bright. "Not just humans," she said. "You've shown that courage and cleverness can match any strength, even among the fiercest warriors in the galaxy." Leora nodded, feeling a sense of accomplishment and purpose. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The galaxy will underestimate humans at their own risk." The twin suns of Zorath dipped below the horizon, leaving a sky painted with shades of gold and purple. The arena, once a place of tension and danger, now seemed almost peaceful. The duel was over, but its impact would last far longer than anyone could imagine. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, but today, one human had stood against one of the strongest beings in the galaxy and emerged victorious. Commander Leora Kane had proven that strength was more than physical power. It was courage, intelligence, and the unyielding human spirit. And as she walked from the arena, the crowd cheering behind her, Leora felt a quiet pride. The galaxy had witnessed a turning point. Humans had earned respect, admiration, and a place among the stars that no one could ignore. Thrinks, watching from the arena floor, was left speechless, awed by the ingenuity, courage, and unbreakable spirit of a single human warrior. It was a moment he would never forget, a lesson he would carry with him forever. And for Leora Kane, the duel was not just a victory. It was a statement. Humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of rising to any challenge. The galaxy had been reminded of something important. The human spirit was extraordinary, and it would shine wherever it was tested.